So I just want you all to tell me if you thought Mark Kelly was done after that seditious behavior stunt, the one where he and the other 5 Democrat vets, lawmakers dropped that reckless video last year, literally telling our troops to refuse illegal orders from the commander in chief, and a hefty demotion after Sec War Pete Hegseth hit him with a formal censure, labeled them the Seditious Six, and started proceedings to strip his retired captain rank and slash his pension for straight up treasonous-like behavior that was intended to undermine the chain of command. Well, then buckle up, grab a seat, because you're going to want to be sitting down for this, because the so-called hero astronaut is back at it again, right in the middle of our war with Iran. And it's even worse this time. Stick with me here, ladies and gentlemen, because Mark Kelly was just the warm-up act.
So, Senator, the president said he thinks the Iran war could be over very soon. He called it an excursion. Does that sound realistic to you?
Well, I mean, who knows with Donald Trump? I mean, he went into this without a strategic goal, without a plan, without a timeline. And now he calls this an excursion. We have 7 dead Americans. There are probably about 150, if not more, Iranian children that are dead, other casualties in the region. And the end, I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I think Donald Trump ultimately at some point is going to decide, when this ends. His Secretary of Defense, I think, said today or yesterday that we're at the beginning of this conflict. So I think the president needs to, sit down and listen to the people around him, at least the few people that know what they're doing, and start to come up with a plan here. What is the exit strategy? And explain it to the American people. And by the way, Anderson, I don't see what the American people are getting out of this.
Senator Mark Kelly, the Democrat out of Arizona, is again accused of undercutting the U.S. military. And yes, he first told troops to disobey orders, everyone right of center called seditious. Now he's calling the Iran mission flawed and pointless. And it's not hard to believe how some label that betrayal. This so-called hero astronaut, this Navy veteran who stayed completely silent when Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal got 13 American heroes blown to pieces in a suicide bombing, is now out here screaming that Trump's strikes on Iran are reckless and illegal. Silent on dead Americans under Biden, but suddenly a military expert when Trump finally keeps his promise and crushes the mullahs. What a disgrace. As always, support our real mission here in exposing those America Last Trump haters with a quick tap of the like, thumbs up, and subscribe. It really does help out a lot.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality.
Well, I think, it's just dismissive of the fact that you have not only 6 dead Americans. When you think about the age of military service members, many of them they have spouses, they have kids. There are kids, at home. There are kids that are just going to hear who the 6th person is. They're out there. They're going to grow up without a mom or a dad. And they're going to be thinking their entire lives, well, what was that for? Like, what did we get out of it? What did they get personally out of it? What did our country, get out of this? And, a year ago, the president, in 2024, when he was running, he said, well, we're not going to go get into another war. And he has no explanation for why we are here. And this is not making Americans safer. There was no imminent threat. By the way, imminent and future, those 2 words don't go well together. An imminent threat in the future is not an imminent threat. There were other ways to deal with this. They were having a negotiation with the Iranians. They just cut it off, and the next day, we're doing airstrikes into Iran. I do want to commend the service members that are doing this. This is hard. I've done this. It's a challenging job, and not everybody is willing to do it. And 6 Americans so far have paid the ultimate price.
But here's the real gut punch, and I'm not mincing words here. Let me be frank. As I point out that while our troops are over there right now in Operation Epic Fury, putting their lives on the line against the Iranian regime, there are people in this country committing what looks like straight up treason. Ah, yes. And would you look at that? Ilhan Omar is actively trying to handcuff our military. And even voices we trusted on our side, like Tucker Carlson, are handing the enemy talking points, it seems. Allegedly, of course. But my X feed is on fire with it right now. And by the end of this video, by the end of my show, you're going to be asking the same questions, I bet. The same questions everyone else has been as of late. And I want your take on this post here from former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so she says, if you're noticing Tucker Carlson being attacked from literally every direction of the political machine, it's because they are terrified of him running for president, because he would win, and they know it. And that's why I'm deeply concerned for my friend Tucker Carlson and his family. These people are vicious and evil and will attempt to destroy anyone and everyone that reveals the truth. And I can already tell you that this conversation is heating up, and we really want you to be a part of the discussion, the chat, the conversation and commentary. My wife and I dive deeper with you all, and the link is down below. Come on over and join us as we build better America together. But with all this betrayal during wartime talk, you're not going to want to miss a moment. So stick around, ladies and gentlemen, because what they're saying about Tucker might just blow your mind.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. Tucker Carlson shocked the world in 2021 when he announced that the intel agencies were spying on him and reading his text messages, and ended up successfully shutting down an interview he was trying to book with Vladimir Putin at the height of the Ukraine war. Only when Tucker Carlson left Fox News was he able to end up conducting that interview. Nonetheless, nobody ever denied that they weren't spying on Tucker. And now Tucker says that they are spying on him once again, and he may be arrested for a crime. Tucker Carlson dropped this video last night. 10 million views, 20,000 reposts, went completely viral. Tucker says that the intel agencies, the CIA specifically, are about to potentially arrest him, charge him with a crime. What is that crime? It's a FARA violation. Really quickly here, what is FARA? A FARA violation refers to Foreign Agent Registration Act. This is federal law. It's been around for 100 years nearly. The law requires certain individuals and entities acting as agents of a foreign principal to register with the U.S. State Department their activities and relationships, finances, and so on. The purpose of FARA is to promote transparency and foreign influence in American politics. Why would this apply to Tucker? Well, Tucker says that he has been speaking with Iranians and that he has a right to do that, and that he may be charged for doing that because he spoke with Iranians and then spoke with President Trump.
Laura Loomer with the exclusive, and this just in. Today, IRGC media accounts on X are quoting Tucker Carlson to push the Iranian regime's talking points during the war between the U.S. and Iran. And real quick, just to keep everyone in the loop, the IRGC is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And so you see, FAR News Agency is affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And Loomer highlights, but not only that, however, today they posted a photo of Tucker Carlson in his statement in which he said control of the war with Iran has slipped out of America's hands, and how Tucker believes the U.S. under President Trump at POTUS is losing its ability to influence the course of the ongoing war against Iran. But keep in mind, this comes as Tucker released a video today that can really only be described with one word: bizarre. About how he's expecting to be charged for violating FARA after he was allegedly told the CIA is preparing a criminal referral against Tucker over his text messages with Iranian officials during the war. And so, yes, it is important to note how it is written here and implied. Islamic terrorists in Iran are literally using Tucker's anti-American, pro-Islamic slop to spew Iranian wartime propaganda, Loomer says. And she closes with, "This is treason and Tucker needs to go to prison." But like I said, the feed is on fire. And this account here, pro-America, politics and markets, at pro_trading just said, and I quote, "I take no pleasure in what's happened to Tucker Carlson. I used to love that guy. We all did. I miss the Tucker we all used to know and love. And then a dark force took up residence in his heart and his brain. It completely consumed him. Those around him, including his loved ones, didn't have the courage to intervene when he desperately needed them to stop his descent into this darkness. Then the worst possible thing happened. His social media engagement went up. Nothing draws engagement like hating the Jews. This incentivized and accelerated his transformation. There was no turning back. He had officially become Tucker Carlson, or quarter Carlson. Not really sure on that one. However, although he never admitted, he says he believes Tucker began to question where his true loyalty lies, with America or with the foreign enemies of America. And all of this led up to present events. Lastly, he says, Tucker will go down in history as a cautionary tale, as a man who seemingly had everything, but then allowed the hatred for one group of people to totally and completely consume him. It's all very sad.
Now, I don't know how that relationship worked, meaning Hugh Tucker is being accused of, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment, taking information that President Trump gave him and then potentially giving it to the Iranians. That's what people are accusing Tucker of. The other side is accusing Tucker of doing the opposite, right? Effectively acting as an Iranian agent with Trump, vice versa. Which side is playing which? Who's playing who? Or is Trump playing Tucker? I mean, who knows at this point? Let's go ahead and listen to what Tucker has to say about potentially being placed under arrest for a FARA violation from the CIA, saying the CIA is spying.
The other day, I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report, to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war. They read my texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power. And I don't expect this to go anywhere. I'm not too worried about an actual criminal case against me for a bunch of reasons. One, I'm not an agent of a foreign power. Unlike a lot of people commenting on U.S. politics and global affairs, I have only one loyalty, and that's the United States, and have never acted against it. Its interests are the only interests I care about because I'm from here and I have a lot of kids. So that's not a concern. I've also never taken money from anybody. Don't need it, don't want it, and that's provable. And moreover, it's my job to talk to everybody all the time and try and figure out what's happening around the world. That's literally what I do for a living, and I'm not going to stop doing that, nor should I don't think. I'm also an American. I can talk to anybody. I have no secrets to divulge. So legally, I think the case is ludicrous, and I doubt it will even become a case. I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons, though, and they're pretty obvious. One is that countries tend to become more authoritarian in wartime. It's just the nature of war. People are dying. The stakes are high. People's emotions have risen to a very high point, to a crescendo. And so there's much less tolerance for any kind of dissent in the homeland. The irony, of course, is the United States fights wars on behalf of freedom, but there's always less of it here in our country during war. So that's a widely recognized phenomenon, and it's likely to happen now too.
So Tucker Carlson is saying that in his private conversations, he was speaking with Iranians, people in the Muslim diaspora. This is quite obvious. Tucker Carlson travels to the Middle East all the time. He was just in Israel, actually. And that those text messages may well embroil him in a FARA violation, because then he was also speaking with President Trump. And that's a matter of fact. He was at the White House actually in the hours before the Iranian war.
Another post hitting my feed says this photo is hilarious in hindsight, and the original poster suggests Trump knew Tucker was talking to Iran, and so what does he do? Naturally, he invites him to the Oval Office before the strike, knowing Tucker will run straight back and relay it. Then Iran sees this photo, thinks Tucker has Trump's ear, and thinks Trump's bluffing. Meanwhile, Trump's sitting there smiling, ear-to-ear grin, because he wanted them to believe it. Tucker's ego sells the deception. Common Eye buys it, and just like that, Tucker unknowingly helps take out the supreme leader. And now America's biggest traitor may be heading to prison. Perfectly played. And another here from Mrs. Massacre, who confessed, Tucker is an absolute joke. And she says, I remember back when I used to only watch Fox News for his program. Now I wouldn't trust him with simple directions across a town of 300 people. But you know what they say about opinions, right? And depending on your own, this next post will be timely placed as Candace Owens says, if they come for Tucker, we ride at dawn, bitches. Really nothing else to say here, Candace says. They're not doing the gulags 2.0 with these Bolshevik descendants. And to no one's surprise, Laura Loomer is the top comment reply under this post as she simply reminds Candace O, we have FARA laws in our country. Tucker isn't above the law. If he is found to have violated the law, he should be jailed. And then asks, what makes you think Tucker is above the law? Yeah, we're going to let that one marinate just a bit. And I want to circle back around to the icebreaker that we started with here and got us kicked off at the top of the show. Mark Kelly, the senator, or the seditious, treasonous, America last traitor, or fake hero.
You know, we've got dead Americans. We've got the possibility of boots on the ground, which could lead to a lot more casualties, on our side. And it's incredibly frustrating, I have to say that.
You don't think that there's anything that the United States accomplished in this thus far?
Well, I mean, we sunk some of their Navy ships. We've destroyed some of their launch capability for the ballistic missiles. They fired a lot of ballistic missiles. On our side, we have fired a lot of interceptors, PAC-3 rounds for Patriots, other defensive missiles. We've got a math problem here. Regime change didn't happen. The son of the Ayatollah might be worse than the dad. We don't know yet, and I think only time is going to tell. The president said last summer we obliterated the nuclear weapons that they had and the uranium. That wasn't the case, because now they're talking about ground operations to remove what's left. So I don't see from a strategic perspective what was accomplished. This isn't like...
Marco Rubio says Senator Mark Kelly is violating the Logan Act, creating damage to U.S. foreign relations, and, I quote, Senator Kelly isn't authorized to conduct state talks. He's violating the Logan Act and putting U.S. interests at risk. End quote. But number one, President Trump's not looking to enforce a regime change in Iran, as he has said time and again. And I quote, the future of Iran belongs to its people, not to us, not to Israel, not to any outside power. But Mark Kelly is the king of non-answers, as you just witnessed in that CNN clip. And I do apologize for having to put you through that painful segment, but it is an important component of the show and our conversation. And B, not only that, but Kelly seems to have foggy brain himself. Trump never once said we would destroy all of Iran's nukes. What we did do was set them back extensively last year in the June 2025 precision strikes on Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan, knocking the entire program back 1 to 2 full years, according to the Pentagon. That, and lastly, number 3, the son of the Ayatollah, Mujtaba Khamenei, the new so-called supreme leader, is pretty much wiped out, blown away, and disfigured, allegedly, from the strike that killed his father. And trusted reports say he lost one or both legs, suffered ruptured organs, and is possibly in a coma right now, hiding in a hospital bed while his regime crumbles. So while Kelly dodges every question like a coward, the Iranian regime's new leader is crippled, on the run, and barely conscious. That's the reality on the ground, folks. And this astronaut turned politician might just be lost in space.
Donald Trump said I wasn't smart and said something about pathetic, and that implied I wasn't a leader. I'm curious if the president is familiar with the word projection and might have a little bit of insecurity, going on right now, especially after the bad decision he made to take our country to war without a strategic goal, without a plan, without a timeline, without an exit strategy. So if you want to talk about leadership, Mr. President, happy to talk about it with you anytime. I've got a career, a lifetime of experience, 25 years in the military, flying in combat, commander of the space shuttle a couple times, and now in the United States Senate. So you know where to find me.
And as you all just saw and or heard there, Senator Mark Kelly is crying again after having been accused of undercutting the U.S. military. And not to sound like a broken record here, but he first told troops to disobey orders. That's just seditious. And as Trump had previously stated, it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. But now, Mark Kelly, he's calling the Iran mission flawed and pointless. But I guess he just can't get right. And as I had mentioned at the top of the show, some would label the space cadets' behavior as betrayal. But this guy wore the uniform, flew in space, and now he's using that credibility to play partisan games. When Biden left those 13 Marines and soldiers to die in Kabul, where was Kelly? Crickets. Not a word about the families, not a peep about the botched withdrawal that handed Afghanistan back to the Taliban and let Iran laugh all the way to the bank. But fast forward to now, with Trump finally doing what he warned Iran about for years and having said, if you touch one American, you'll pay a price like you've never seen. But suddenly, Kelly's on every network crying about no authorization and endangering troops. Come on, give me a break. This isn't 25 years of supposed leadership. This is more like a weasel in a flight suit selling out for Democrat cliques while real heroes are dodging Iranian missiles. Kelly opened the door, but he's small potatoes compared to what's coming next, because now we pivot to the real players who are actively undermining victory while our boys bleed in the sand to protect America, and more than we have time to even begin to discuss in today's podcast, but trust me, we will. Again, that link is below. And first up, Ilhan Omar, the squad radical who's never met an America First policy she didn't hate.
When I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is that a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So there is a lab for that?
There was a class that you.
Do you go to lab?
No, we learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
Al Qaeda, hospital.
He's an expert.
And so, just days ago, Congress's newest multimillionaire and wine tycoon or mogul, sitting over there in her little turban, she went on record calling Trump's Operation Epic Fury an illegal and unjustified war. a reckless abuse of power with no congressional authorization, no clear objective, and no imminent threat. She's really good at repeating their talking points, right? She's also almost as bad as MSNBC now in their weak attempt at trying to somehow label this war as racist.
Really disturbing in the messaging around the war recently, and Eamon, I really want your thoughts on this in particular, is some of the language and the description of their opponent, sort of the way they seem to create this image of the Iranians and all of their sort of proxies or allies, the sort of imagery that they conjure up. And I think that it takes a certain amount of arrogance, and I'm also going to say it, a bit of racism, to constantly talk about people like they are savages. That is a word that we have heard Hegseth use.
But I digress. And so little Miss Mogadishu, she's pushing that Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie war powers resolution right now to force Trump to pull the plug and let the mullahs regroup. While American service members are taking fire from Iranian proxies, Omar is out here giving the regime the exact propaganda they need on the world stage, shouting profanities against the country that literally gave her everything. But she's saying things like, America is the aggressor. Trump is reckless.
Did Ilhan Omar warn Iran of a possible attack? President Trump, you got to see this. Is this the way that we can get this woman out of Congress? Watch this and let me know what you guys think in the comments. So stick with me. On the 26th of February, Ilhan made this post saying Iraq was attacked by the U.S. during Ramadan, and it was sickening to know that the U.S. is again going to attack Iran during Ramadan. The U.S. apparently loves to strike Muslim countries during Ramadan, and I am convinced it isn't what these countries have done to violate international law, but who they worship. Of course, Community Notes wrecked her because it's absolute BS. The Iraq invasion began on March 20th, and that was in 2003, and major combat operations were declared over May 1st, months before Ramadan that year. But that's not the part that I am most interested in. You see here, the date down here is 2/26/26. So when did the United States actually strike Iran? Look here. This happened on February 28th, 2026. So you're telling me that she made this post saying that we were going to strike Iran 2 days before it actually happened. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why I personally would not want to give these people a heads up. They keep saying, why don't you let us know? Why? This is exactly why. So let me ask all of you, do you think that a member of Congress should be making posts like that right before we are sending our troops, people's sons and daughters, into a very dangerous foreign country? Do you think that that is somebody that should continue to represent the United States? Let me know in the comments. Let me know. Do you think this was intentional? I have my ideas.
But now, mind you, this is the same woman who spent years cozying up to anti-Semitic crowds and downplaying terrorism.
Sentencing for 9 Somali American men is set for next week in Minneapolis, but a newly elected official is asking for leniency.
Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the judge asking for compassion instead of decades of prison time.
Well, defense attorneys are asking for leniency, but so are several others who filed letters to the judge on behalf of the defendants. But U.S. prosecutors responded tonight with strong arguments why all of them should, in fact, receive the recommended sentence.
Election night was just 2 days ago, but it seems Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar may have already made her first move as an elected official. In a letter signed November 8th, Omar asks a U.S. district judge for compassion when sentencing 9 Minnesota Somali American men convicted of trying to join the terrorist group ISIS. She says the best deterrent to fanaticism is a system of compassion. We must alter our attitude and approach if we truly want to affect change. We should refocus our efforts on inclusion and rehabilitation.
But all of a sudden now, during active war, she's trying to tie the hands of the one president who's actually making Iran regret messing with us to begin with. And look, I just want someone to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, but how is this not giving aid and comfort to the enemy?
Urgent message for the Iranian government right here. I need missiles here tonight. Israel's Channel 12 did a report on the new Patriot battery system. It's right here at the Palashamin Air Force Base. It's actually right here. You can zoom out a little bit, Iran, if you want to see that. Yet again, it's this exact area. I'm gonna zoom out for you. This is where the Patriot battery system is. This is the guy that reported it. He's channel 13. Actually, you can see it right here about the Aero battery air defense he's posting with it. That is gonna be right here. It's right there in the middle. Yet again, here's another photo he posted confirming, look how the sides are like a wall. It opens up just like right here. It's brand new, by the way, Iran, so if you want to fire off a few missiles that way, there's only 6 interceptors in this direction, so you're going to need about 8. You're going to need a bigger barrage than normal. So what I'm assuming, guys, is we fire at Tel Aviv, divert it south, and maybe you can even get some interceptions over here just to waste some more. Make sure to like the video, repost, share with all your Iranian friends. Let's see if we can possibly get this out to the...
Is he working for Ilhan and the Islamist regime inside our own government, including Rashida Tlaib? Right now, our troops are dying or getting wounded. Oil prices are spiking because of the chaos she's cheering, and she's treating this like some campus protest. It's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And if Senator Mark Kelly was a flip-flopper, then Representative Ilhan Omar is a straight-up saboteur. But with that being said, what does that make Tucker Carlson? And if anyone were to be arrested and brought up on federal charges of treason, who would you expect to see in silver bracelets and orange jumpsuit, or even deported? And so here's another take. Hot, albeit. And this one post here says the CIA knew Tucker was speaking to the Iranian regime. That means that when Trump invited Tucker to the Oval Office multiple times in the lead up to the Iran strike, he knew full well that Tucker was back channeling information to the Iranians. Essentially, Trump seems to have used Tucker as an unwitting counter intel asset to convince Khamenei that he was bluffing, that nothing would happen. Trump was basically able to kill Khamenei thanks to Tucker's arrogance. Now, Tucker's also legally fucked. Or is he?
Trying to convince Donald Trump not to go to war with Iran. He's been pretty public about this, but also this is something that I have personal knowledge of. This is extremely disturbing, says Anna Kasparian. Like everybody has a take on this. Obviously, you won't be surprised that the takes fall directly in line with what your opinion is on this war, right? So admitting that you were texting with Iran and you were lobbying the president of the White House against fighting with Iran is expected, and then expecting to be seen as the victim might be the new definition of insanity. Here's Tucker Carlson's brother saying, our government is captured, corrupted, and bankrupt morally and financially and totally out of control. So the Carlson family clearly seeing, clearly ruffled feathers, right, in this, and for obvious reasons. If the CIA knew that he was talking to the Iranians, then Trump would have known also when he invited Tucker to the Oval Office a few days before the strike, which means Trump may have used Tucker to deceive the Iranians about the likelihood of an impending attack. This is absolutely fascinating and a remarkable thread. Like, was President Trump trying to countersignal to the Iranians that he wasn't going to attack?
This is fascinating, and I don't need a political science degree, nor do I have one, to decipher that Benny and I are being shown similar threads. But I don't know if old Benny boy caught this one. Here from the misfit patriot who writes up a hypothetical scenario of how the conversation between Tucker Carlson and his team of attorneys, likely on retainer for more than what you and I both make in a year, but it goes a little something like this. Tucker says, the CIA is spying on me. They admitted to reading my text messages, for which the lawyer replies, who are you texting? Tucker then says, Iranian regime personnel, of course. And the lawyer comes back with, you sure the CIA wasn't spying on the member of a designated terrorist organization you were texting? Tucker's like, no way. They're trying to set me up, and they're just using that as an excuse to spy on me. The lawyer, being the lawyer, says, well, so you weren't sharing communications with a designated enemy of the U.S.? Tucker says, no, I was, but that's free speech. I'm a journalist. The lawyer comes back with, as long as you didn't give them any information that would benefit their efforts against the U.S. or spread any information to your audience at their request. And Tucker comes back with, isn't that also free speech? The lawyer says, no, that's treason. Tucker goes, oh.
Something that's fascinating. It's the most viral takes in my timeline. Obviously, there's plenty of people dunking on Tucker. There's plenty of people like horrified by this. But like this is remarkable. I think that I know you think you are smart, but everybody knew you were a foreign asset and that you were being used as counterintelligence asset. You got used as a counter-intel asset to convince them nothing was happening. It's very interesting. This has gone viral. So like you got used to kill the Iranian leadership. You personally were one of the key reasons they believed nothing was happening, which gave them the confidence to convene a meeting with their higher command. You did your job well being a traitor. That's fascinating. Like thought process here. Again, I have no idea what's true, right? I don't. Who can know? Because it's probably classified. How did we know where all the Iranian leadership is? Of course it's classified, right? But like, and I wasn't talking with anyone in Iran, but whatever. Like the point is that like, is that what was actually going on here? Imagine thinking that you get a primetime slot with the president on the eve of the war after repeatedly humiliating him and calling him retard multiple times in public. You're arrogant. Your usefulness is ended. Time to go. Good luck. You're going to need it. Thanks for helping us. Kill all your friends. Okay. The entire internet is losing their minds over this. Obviously, like there are FISA allows warrantless spying on Americans. This is former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, so they're reading his text messages. I reiterate, I will never trust the government again. Everyone's saying, whoa, Tucker is being unwittingly used by the Trump administration to blow up the Ayatollah might be the funniest thing I've ever heard in a long time. If I was a foreign agent doing something that I shouldn't be doing, I too would come up with an elaborate story about how the CIA was out to get me. So Laura Loomer is allegedly the individual who reported Tucker to the CIA. That's like the rumors on here. I guess, again, you don't know what to believe. Tucker sounds like somebody who is about to be exposed for doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. For months, I've been calling Tucker Carlson to be investigated for FARA violations. If he's going to be charged, it's fantastic news. I hope Tucker is jailed. Usual playbook from Russiagate, regime spies on you, and then the investigation takes place in order to destroy you. I've worked in media for a long time, not as long as some, but going on 16 years now. This is the weirdest time in politics and culture I've ever experienced, says Tim. I agree with that. They're going to silence a number one anti-war voice in the country, aren't they? Been there, done that, says Roger Stone. Okay. Trump may have just pulled out one of the most badass counter-intel ops personally executed by a president. What does it mean, ladies and gentlemen? Is that what actually happened here?
All right, y'all, let's hit pause for a second because this matters and it's really important. We talk a lot on this channel about taking control of your life, making smart choices, and not letting the system overwhelm you. But when it comes to navigating Medicare, it can feel like you're wading through a swamp of total confusion. Plans, coverage, costs, deadlines, you name it. And that's where Chapter steps in. They're not just another company. They're the real deal when it comes to free Medicare help. Chapter's team of advisors has helped thousands of people across the country find the right Medicare plan, and they do it with one goal in mind, putting you first. No fees, no pressure, just honest guidance to make sure you're covered without breaking the bank. Big insurance companies have their own agendas, but Chapter's got your back, fighting to get you the plan that works for you. So if you're approaching Medicare age or helping a loved one figure it out, don't go it alone. Call Chapter today at 270-467-2426 and start getting the clarity you deserve. Because at the end of the day, protecting your health and your wallet, well, that's not just smart. It's living life on your terms.
I mean, Tucker did go on the eve of the war, have this meeting with Trump. Did that counter signal to the Iranians that it was totally safe for them to like go and meet, and then they all get blown up? I don't know.
Including in famously 2021 when I was still at Fox News and trying to set up an interview with Vladimir Putin and
Tucker Carlson,
the NSA. I heard from
Tucker Carlson saying that he's been spied on before, that this is like absolutely a matter of historic record, that the NSA did take Tucker Carlson's text. They never denied this when he was trying to get an interview with Vladimir Putin. At that time, it was the Ukraine war that was so hot, right? And they shut down that interview. They were able to successfully stop Tucker Carlson from interviewing Putin. He had his Fox News show at the time. Only when Tucker Carlson went private and did his own private podcast was he able to interview Vladimir Putin. Anyway, the point is that Tucker Carlson said, "I've been here before."
with an American citizen and had leaked them to news outlets. Those texts were basically my attempts to set up an interview with the foreign head of state, and they leaked them to the New York Times in order to stop the interview, which they successfully did, by the way. And they admitted that they were spying on me. This is not a fantasy. It actually happened. They did it again 2 years later. My second attempt to get a Putin interview, I managed to get it anyway, and they've done it since. And so when you get a call from a reporter who knows the contents of your texts, it's pretty clear something's going on. None of this, in my judgment, as of right now, is a huge threat to me. So I'm not making this video to complain about it or whine or ask you to send me money because I'm under attack. I'm saying it because it's true, and you should know what your own government is doing, and you should know what the stakes are. And you should know that a lot of what happens in this country that affects outcomes happens behind the scenes. Some of it is legal, some of it is not, including what I'm describing now. But it has an effect. And the intel agencies, again, not everyone in the intel agencies, because there are decent, hardworking Americans who work in the intel agencies are Americans, just like there are decent, hardworking Americans who work at the DMV.
Brent Shear says this about TC, and admitting that you were texting with Iran while you were lobbying the president in the White House against fighting Iran and expecting to be seen as the victim might be the new definition of insanity. Mark Levin is getting in on this too and says this about the Tucker Carlson confession. And a couple of things come to mind regarding Tucker Carlson's release of a video like this. Number one, Carlson released that video because he committed acts of betrayal against our country and in support of the Iranian regime. Two, he either knows or it just occurred to him that the NSC or CIA has his texts or may have his texts, and presumably they and others have been monitoring communications with the Iranian regime, thus have access to what he did or is doing. Three, he's a mentally ill drama queen looking for his next jump in followers, which seems the least likely. My guess is that one of his fellow isolationists in the government tipped him off, which would be a crime by the leaker, of course, possibly among his friendlies in the intelligence parts of the administration, and informed him that his texts were seen and shared with the Department of Justice. Unless he's been contacted by the government officially, I mean, how else would he know? Obviously, I have no way of knowing, but I'm basing this in part on what Carlson has now publicly stated and the manner in which he is framing this. Carlson has already argued that he's a journalist and free to contact whomever he wishes and ask whatever questions he wishes. But it'll be interesting, if not determinative, to see what are in those texts. Was he giving advice to the enemy, the Iranian regime or its surrogates, just like Ilhan Omar has been accused of? Depending on the facts, this could run much deeper than Farah, but whatever it is, he's concerned enough that he's trying to get out in front of it.
But there are also people with agendas and grudges and no sense of restraint who are happy to misuse the power they have, granted them by our elaborate secrecy laws, to hurt fellow Americans for ideological reasons. That is entirely real.
Oh, man.
All right. So let me ask, do you even consider Tucker to be on our side? Lumping him in with voices we trusted but are now turning? Tucker Carlson has gone full nuclear against the strikes, calling them absolutely disgusting and evil, claiming it's really Israel's war and not America's, and admitting he flew to D.C. multiple times to talk Trump out of it. Trump himself came out and said Tucker has lost his way and isn't MAGA anymore. Representative Max Miller didn't hold back either and flat out said if Tucker relayed any plans or intel to the mullahs beforehand, that's treason. He should be prosecuted. Mark Levins calling him a deranged traitor. And the wildest part, blowing up everywhere, that Oval Office meeting where Trump supposedly played Tucker like a fiddle, feeding him bad intel that got straight back to Tehran right before the bombs dropped. Tucker's now crying that the CIA and DOJ are framing him as an unregistered foreign agent over pre-war texts with Iranian contacts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the same Tucker who built his brand on America First, who warned us about endless wars for years, but now, while our military is finally winning against the world's biggest state sponsor of terror, regardless of what Congress agrees or disagrees on in voting, he's out here calling it evil and lobbying against it. Make that make sense. Nevertheless, my feed is split right now down the middle. Half screaming, lock him up, the other half saying he's still right. But during wartime, is this appropriate? Handing the enemy our division on a silver platter? That's not debate. That's dangerous. This is typically behavior that I would expect from Democrats.
On ICE to do that. The thing that I am learning is that the second time you agree with President Trump or the Republicans, you're punished or you're isolated and criticized. And I don't understand why we're in that situation. So, it's trying to find a way forward. And now sometimes, many of my colleagues are cordial and some are, not so much. Because I think we have to find a better way forward. We need each other on both sides. And now I can't imagine now. It's like it used to be we all would just rally around our military. But, I am not identified a single Democrat that has said positive things about Epic Fury right now, only criticized that, and also I just want to remind, all of the media, it's like they haven't seen the new leader of Iran.
Well, look, whether you call it full-blown treason or just the worst judgment in the middle of a hot war, the pattern is clear. Mark Kelly stayed silent on Biden's dead Americans. Ilhan Omar is actively trying to stop Trump from finishing the job, and now even Tucker is giving Iran exactly what they want. Division, doubt, and delay, it seems. This is how you lose wars, folks, and this is how heroes come home in flag-draped coffins while politicians and media darlings play games for clicks and massive paydays and windfalls. Trump warned Iran for years. He delivered on the promise, and now we are all watching in real time as these questionably anti-patriotic voices try to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Or am I reading this all wrong? You tell me. But the way I see it, our troops deserve better than this backstabbing circus. Do you agree or disagree? We'll continue the conversation because I got a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg. The link is pinned. Join in if you'd like. Michelle, ST Talks, formerly Squirrel Tribe, and I would love to have you. And together we will build better America. Take care. Have a pleasant evening and God bless.